Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for stopping by today. Today's project is a part of the Tens Fall 2016 release blog hop. I have a few of the products that they've released here. They have over 20 new stamp sets, so be sure to check them out. Anything from holiday to year-round stamp sets, including this holiday confetti stamp set that I think that you can use year-round with that little polka dot kind of fade there. I love that sentiment that says love, peace, joy, and fruitcake. It reminds me of my grandma because she's the only one I've ever known who likes fruitcake. And then there is this gorgeous brushed Mary, and I'm going to be using that for a few cards today. We're going to make that sentiment sparkle like it's never sparkled before. And finally, I just loved this Born Classy stamp set. In fact, I have a few examples of this stamp set in action over on my blog, and I will likely do a video tutorial on those card projects coming up soon here on YouTube, so be sure to keep your eye out for that. But for today, we're going to make this brushed Mary sentiment sparkle. And I mean, a couple weeks ago, I did a video, and I think I called them glitter sprinkled sentiments. If those were glitter sprinkled, this is like glitter dunked sentiments. So we're going to add layers of glitter to this, and I'm going to kind of show you how I did this today. I'm starting out by inking up my stamp and stamping it using my Mini Misty onto some Neenah Solar White cardstock. I prepped the surface of that cardstock with my EK Success powder tool before I stamped that down. And now I'm adding some Ranger Gold Tinsel embossing powder to this. And I'm just taking a dry brush and cleaning up any areas where there was extra embossing powder in places that I didn't want it. And then I went ahead and heat set it with my heat tool. Now this embossing powder is pretty sparkly and shiny as it is, but you know me, I was like, how can I add more glitter to this? So I am going to go ahead and place this back into my Misty. I'm going to prep the surface once again with my EK Success powder tool, and I'm going to ink it up again with my Versamark ink pad. And then I'm going to stamp it right on top. Now, because I'm using the Mini Misty here, I'm able to stamp the sentiment right on top of where it was, but you can use a clear block to do this as well. I just have the Misty, and it makes my job a lot easier at times. So once I've stamped that down, I am going to take and I'm going to add some super fine gold glitter. This is not an embossing powder. This is an actual glitter. And I know some of you are cringing at the thought of bringing out some super fine glitter onto your work surface. But I think it is super fun when you look in the mirror and you have glitter all over your face and all over your body and all over your pants. And you can also use a Swiffer a Swiffer dry cloth to clean up your work surface. So what you saw me do there was actually heat set that glitter into the embossing powder that was already there. So I remelted the embossing powder underneath. And because this was a little bit glittery still, it was shedding kind of everywhere, I went ahead and put this back into my Misty one more time. I inked it up with my Versamark ink once again, and now I'm going to add a layer of clear embossing powder over this, and then I'm going to heat set it. And what that layer of clear embossing powder does is kind of locks that glitter in between those two layers of embossing powder so that you get that, I won't say that it doesn't shed at all, but it sheds a whole lot less than if you don't lock it in. And actually, I'm going to show you here. I'm just kind of touching that, and you can see I have a little bit of glitter on my finger. You're still going to have a little bit of shedding, but it's not going to be anything like it was before. Now, I'm going to show you this again with using some red glitter and red sparkle embossing powder. But as I do that, I kind of just wanted to talk to you about an idea that I had, because hindsight is always 20/20, right? So what I thought you could actually do, and I want to try, is instead of using the plain clear embossing powder on the top, is maybe use the ultra thick embossing enamel from WOW and give yourself a really thick coating of clear embossing powder over the top of that glitter. And what I think that will do, now this is all theory, right? Because I'm just thinking out loud here. What I think it will do is actually lock that glitter in a little bit better. And I think it will also add another element of shine because it's going to kind of magnify the glitter that's underneath it because it's so thick and bubbly. I think you're going to get even more shine than what you have with the results here. So here you saw me emboss that first with some red glitter embossing powder. Then I stamped it once again using Versamark right on top. I'm adding some super fine red glitter and then reheat setting the embossing powder that's underneath. And be careful, don't add too much heat in any area when you are remelting the embossing powder underneath because you can scorch the embossing powder. So you're just going to want to heat set it until it's just melted, and then move your heat tool away. And then just like before, I'm finishing this off with a layer of clear embossing powder to kind of lock that in. Now, I have to be honest here, I got glitter all over my stamp, but never fear. You just take your stamp over to your sink, you use some warm soapy water to wash off your stamp, and all that glitter comes off. So now that I have a couple of glittered sentiments, I wanted to show you kind of how to do a foiled sentiment. I am using some antique distress ink from Ranger here to stamp this Brushed Mary sentiment onto another piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. And then I'm going to add some foil over the top of this. So you can see I have a really light sentiment here. And I'm going to use my Zig two-way glue pen. This is the chisel nibbed glue pen. And I am going to trace right over the top of that. Now, I have to tell you, distress ink reactivates with water or moisture. And because this glue is a water-based glue, it's very watery, you do get a little bit of bleed when you add the glue on top of this ink. But because this antique linen is so close to the color of foil that I use, even though it's bled out a little bit from the areas where the foil has been added, you can't really see it. But I will warn you ahead of time that does happen. You could use a more permanent ink. I just didn't have any in that color. So keep that in mind. You may want to use a more permanent ink when you're stamping this if you're going to add glue over the top. So I've let that glue dry. That glue dries tacky and it dries clear. And then I've pressed a piece of the ThermoWeb champagne foil over the top, and then I've run it through my Big Shot machine, just through my regular sandwich. And there's no dies here. I just use that pressure of the machine to press that foil onto that adhesive. And that gives me a really beautiful, shiny foil, handwritten looking sentiment. It looks like I wrote it myself, but I didn't. Now, I have 3 very sparkly sentiments here, and this one I totally screwed up because when I was cleaning my stamps, I got a little bit of overspray from the stamp cleaner onto this card front here. And so I was like, I am not throwing this out. So how am I going to disguise this? So I'm just taking a little bit of black watercolor here and a water brush, and I've just added a little bit of that watercolor onto the edge of a clear block and then just flicked it on there. And that covered up my mistake. And only me and you and YouTube knows about that. So now that I have all these sparkly sentiments, it's time to make the rest of this. And I've just stamped the words Am Bright onto a piece of Licorice Twist cardstock. I'm heat embossing them with some super fine detail white embossing powder from Ranger. And of course, I prepped the surface of that black cardstock using my EK Success powder tool ahead of time. And I'm going to emboss the sentiment 3 different times so that I have enough for all of my cards. I'm kind of keeping the card design simple because I want the focus to remain on those really beautiful sparkly sentiments. So I'm taking my craft knife here and I'm just trimming along the bottom part of that M there so that I can slide these sentiment strips along with a piece of red and white pattern paper just right underneath there. I'm going to attach the embossed sentiment onto that red and white pattern paper, which is actually a stamped piece of paper. And I am going to trim those both at an angle and then slide that into that slit that I've created. And I did put a little bit of foam adhesive behind the sentiment grouping here, or the strip grouping here, to kind of add some dimension to the card front. So once I got those attached onto the card front, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of tape runner adhesive to the back of my card front and add a layer of fun foam. This is going to add some dimension to my card. And for my card base, I am using the wood grain cardstock. This is from the Essentials by Ellen line. This is a craft wood grain cardstock. I love it for holiday cards. I think it's so beautiful. And like I've said before, when you're keeping a card design really simple, having a little bit of texture on your card base can really go a long way in keeping that card from feeling too plain. So once again, I don't know what that was before. I don't know how that little clip of me putting some tape runner adhesive got in front of this part. But anyway, there's my fun foam on the back of my card front. I attached it to my card base. And now I'm finishing the card off with some sequins here. These are just clear sequins, and I added them on with some multi-medium in the matte finish. Now, I went back and looked at these cards and felt like they needed a splash of green, so I went ahead and die cut some holly leaves and placed those onto the cards as well. And I have 3 really super sparkly cards here. I love the layers of this glitter, and you get a much more glittery look with that layered glitter embossing powder and then glitter on the top and then clear embossing powder. It is just so much more glittery than the regular glitter embossing powders. And of course, here is a look at that beautiful foiled sentiment as well. And I did want to give you a peek at the card I made using that Born Classy stamp set as well. Be sure to head on over to my blog where you will find more still shots and more information, as well as some information on the giveaways for this blog hop. As always, I will have links to the featured supplies in the description at YouTube, and I will have a complete list of supplies over at my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.